Welcome back to the Homefront, everybody. This is Jeff Dudan, and I am here today with Stephen Kellogg, singer, songwriter, stand-up comedian, and author. I'm very excited about the time we're going to get to spend. Welcome, Stephen.
How are you, my friend?
I'm so good, man. Thank you so much for jumping on. Big fan of the music. Excited about your stand-up and everything you got going on. And I have to tell you, in preparing for this, I got a copy of your book, which is Objects in the Mirror. And, sometimes when you get books, like, you wonder if they sound like the author. And my sense of this book is like, you wrote this, is very authentic to you. The stories are very real. And I don't usually do this, but, I skimmed it pretty good. I probably read a quarter to a half of it getting ready for this. I'm going to go back and read it after we do the show.
Great. I view that as high praise. I'll
Yeah,
take
man.
It.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, about early life and maybe, when you realized you were first a creative?
Well, certainly it was always in my head, when the family would have barbecues and things like that. And my uncles, who were these pretty intimidating characters, would always sing at these pig roasts. And it was pretty archaic. There'd be like, someone would like have pieces of a broomstick for drumsticks. And it was down home music, but I remember feeling like, wow, this is a great feeling. Now I didn't realize that was something you could do and make a life of until quite a bit later. But I have an aunt and an uncle who are portrait painters, and they've worked together, and they're now in their 70s, and they've done incredible work, had a lot of achievements, but are also not household names. And through them, I started to see, as I got to be a teenager, there is like something between starving artist and household name. It does exist in artist life. And thank goodness I found that, because I don't think a lot of us know that exists. So here I am now. It's been 24 years since I've had a proper employment, and I'm grateful for that.
So you've been able to make a living doing what you want to do. You got a beautiful family, 4 kids. Why? Like, you have 4 kids. Why? Do you ever ask yourself why?
On this exact day, Jeff, I'm kind of asking myself that very question. It's the end of a summer, and I think it's changed a lot from when we were kids. Everybody kind of wakes up like, well, what are we doing today? How is the world going to roll itself out for me? And my wife and we're on about our last nerve by the end of it. We're ready for everybody to go back to school.
How old's your youngest now?
She is 11.
Okay.
She's 11. So I got 11, 13, 16, and 19.
You got all meenagers.
That's
what my grandfather used to call me.
I've never heard that. That's a great one, man. It's my oldest daughter has been kind of helping us steer the younger ones away from the screens, and because she says you don't want to be a screenager, which I also thought was a useful.
I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one too.
Yeah, Stephen, specifically to your music, when did you first start performing professionally? And then you've toured 21 countries. And you've been out on the road a lot. You've done a lot for the military. Talk a little bit about that phase of your life, and the travel, the touring, and then maybe how you balance that out with family.
Yeah. Well, as a kid, I'm seeing rock bands, and I'm starting to think like, okay, I could have been any number of things. But music seemed to be the thing that was standing up the most and announcing itself at that, in high school and then college and after college. It was like, I played places and made more money than I was making staining decks. So I thought, all right, let's go with this, and that's really where music came from. And then the thing is, if you're going to do that, you gotta get out on the road. Or maybe you don't nowadays. There are other ways. The world has changed since I was coming up. But that just seemed like what we had to do. And I knew I wasn't going to be the most talented guy in any of the areas, especially singing or guitar. Songwriting, I felt better at, but I still knew that there were people much better than I am. So I just thought I'll outwork everybody. Um, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this, like, I'm not sure if I would advise this of anyone, but it has sort of, it did make up for a lot. But I was always the guy that would say, all right, sure, I'll hit the road. And we started to see some progress in a number of cities, where more and more people would come out. And what's interesting is there were a lot of cities where we didn't see progress, and I still haven't. I've played Lawrence, Kansas 17 times, and there'll still be 100 people if I go there. There'll probably never be more, hopefully never be less. But I mean, that's kind of, and I can't exactly tell you why that is or what that has to do with. I just knew, all right, I've got to go out and see, and then that eventually led us to Europe, and we started feeling like, man, we got to try to give back in some areas. And playing for the military was something that we thought none of us would have made, decent soldiers, I don't think. And we just decided, regardless of any political thing, let's just go play overseas where people need to know that they're being thought of and appreciated. And so I've done a lot of that over the years. And next thing you know, we're next year we're going to hit our 3,000th show. So we'll do something special for that. But that's a lot of shows,
Yeah. So how much are you touring now, and versus the stand-up comedy that it seems like you're moving towards? I've caught a couple of sets online, pretty good stuff. I'm interested in that in particular. How are you balancing those two pursuits?
I mean, so I did stand up for the first time last May because my friend owns a comedy club and he kept coming to the concerts and he's like, dude, you're talking as much as you're playing. You got to come do this. And I said, no, these people but I did it last May and it was awesome. I had so much fun. I went to my wife and said, all the guys you could have married. I'm like, for my next trick here, my next get rich quick scheme is I'm going to do some stand up, but it's been really fun. And I don't tour the way that I used to, but I'm still, I'll do 100 shows in a year, and that feels like 275 used to feel. It still feels like a lot of time away from home.
Yeah.
And I'm always chasing ways of balancing it like everybody else I know. I mean, I don't know. I know very few people who seem to have some kind of work-life balance. It tilts too much this way, and then you get home and you're happy to be home, but you realize the money dries up quick and you got to get out and do it again. So it's it is great work and I'm grateful for it, but it is work that we all do as creatives as well.
Yeah. A real through line in your work is storytelling. Your lyrics are kind of sweet, actually. They're thoughtful. They tell stories. Stand up is, I mean, you're telling stories with funny stories or whatever it is, and so songwriting and storytelling seems to be real strength for you, and the writing as well. Where do you get your material for all of these different things? What's your inspiration?
It's just, I feel like Clark Griswold 9 days out of 10, Jeff, and I just started writing down just the stuff that drives me crazy, the stuff that the ways that I embarrass myself, the awful things that I do or say, I don't know that I can stop saying things that are that are clunky, but what you can do is sort of you look at your wife or your friend or your manager or whoever and say, I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. I didn't mean it. You can own it. You can take responsibility. You can apologize and mean it. And then you can put it into the material, because
right.
we're all doing this. And when you say it out loud, it takes away some of the shame and embarrassment. I mean, I called my 11-year-old. Can you swear on here or what? I don't want to.
Sure.
Okay. So, I mean, this is a lot of people think that you're such a good dad. You love family. It's you love kids. People say, I love my kids. I don't love all kids. I love my kids is who I love. And I am an okay dad and I'm a pretty good husband, but I call my daughter, Gret, I called her a little shit in January. That's not the worst thing you could say. But when it comes out of your mouth, you're like, it doesn't matter that she was being one. It just like, it comes out and you're like, that's not good. Like, we got to figure that out, and somehow, then obviously you go upstairs and you say, look, hon, dad's frustrated. Shouldn't have said that. I don't think that. I was really frustrated, and you just show them how to be a human. And then you take the argument out to where she's not there and you get to go share it with a bunch of parents who, if they haven't said it, certainly wanted to. And you get to all have a laugh about it and go, hey, at least we're trying. And that to me is like, serves two purposes. 3, it heals you, it lets the audience, there's camaraderie and community in it. And hopefully it takes some of the stigma off making mistakes and failing. I mean, if it's like, we're living in an age here where everything looks like it's pretty perfect. There's even the reels on TikTok that are supposed to look like, oh, look what happened to me. They look like they were edited by a professional filmmaker. Like everything has this look to it. And I like to keep it real,
Yeah, as so much of that's set up. The best stuff is when you can tell it's authentic. And unfortunately, the pain in our personal conversations turns into a great bit when you tell it to strangers at a conference or from a stage or wherever you're at. Yeah. And then, somebody riding their bike into a railing, it hurt them, but man, that's a good reel.
It's funny though, you know, and if you can laugh at it, it's like, it allows you to move on and heal from all this. Otherwise you just amass stuff that you feel bad about. And I mean, when I was leaving for my first stand-up set, my youngest said to me, she's like, all right, as I'm walking out the door, don't tell any jokes about me. And I'm like,
they're all about you.
They're all about you. So much is about you, about marriage, about family, about working really hard. I think a lot of us are surprised by how hard we like the coasting. I always envisioned that adults were on some kind of coasting situation. Like I thought 40s, I knew you had to like work hard at some point early on. I didn't realize I would be working this hard. I'm only 47, but I didn't realize I'd be working hard right now. And there's no real like end to this except the end. And that I think is the crux of the midlife crisis is like, whoa, do I just do this for the rest of my time? And is there any way not to just do this grind like all the time? Like it is. And that's when you start to go like, okay, maybe I shouldn't hang out with like that friend who's not really a good friend. Like maybe I need to get rid of them in my life because they're just taking up, I only have this much time, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm like most folks my age, that's kind of where what I'm sorting out a lot of it on stage, either through the music, which is you I forget the word you use. I mean, it is thoughtful. I hopefully it's not too sentimental. You know, it is. I am a mush, but I try to put enough weight and teeth into things. You know, so.
Yeah, well, the song lyrics, they're very compelling. You know, I watched your TED, and then you know, then I come across this TED Talk where you do a TED Talk about job satisfaction.
Yeah.
Which, you know, and I'm like, man, like what, like who is like. There's such a, you know, you're finding all of these outlets for your creativity. And, you know, it's, by the way, it's not easy to get on a TED Talk. Like you got to be good. And it was really, really good. And then you wrapped it up with a song, which was really, really good. I mean, it was one of the better TED Talks, and it was about job satisfaction. Talk about, it's better to be at the bottom of a ladder that you want to climb than at the top of one that you don't. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah. It's better to
What
be at
did,
the bottom of a ladder you want to climb than the top of one that you don't.
what does that mean?
So, I mean, and I say this in the TED Talk. I did get that from The Office, the TV show The
That's
Office.
right.
The English version of The Office had that. And I thought that's brilliant, you know. And I've seen that in my own life when I was working selling advertising. Every day was so much work right after college. I felt like a caged animal. It was very hard to be good at it. And the minute I started doing music and communicating and kind of just getting to say, hey, here's what I think. You know, at that moment, I was playing in a 3-4 hour sets in a steakhouse, and I was getting
Yeah.
paid maybe $150, you know, to do that work. But I felt really good, even though that was not a glamorous gig or what I was aspiring to. I just thought, man, I would rather work like a dog at this one thing. You know, it's better to be at the bottom of something going, well, I've got one life here and I'm going to try to spend it playing music and sharing my point of view, um, than the middle or the top of something that you're not compelled to do. That said, um, sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do, you know?
Right.
I'm trying to teach that to my kids right now. I think they're growing up with a real ability to get A's, but not always the common sense and resourcefulness that I think the next generation is going to need. You know, I not to throw them under the bus, but I came home one night and everybody said, "Thank goodness you're home. We're starving." And I was like, there's food here. And what did you eat? Like, and they're like, well, we didn't know what to do. I'm like, you're going to starve if you don't have the ability to like go, I'm hungry. There's cabinets full of food. There's a kitchen. Like, you've got to be able to make food and be resourceful. And so sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do, me included, you know? You just do what you have to do. And that's why the know why you're working was such an important part of that. You know, if you know that you're working to take care of someone you love, you can find a lot of energy and resourcefulness in that. But whenever you have the chance to climb a ladder worth climbing, something that actually compels you, somewhere you want to get, I think you got to do that, you know, and it doesn't matter if you don't have to do it when you're 20. You can change careers in the middle of your life. That's being proven so much right now, every day, you know. You just got to do it. You just start, and you know, things have a way of working out when you're passionate about them. In my experience, you know.
Yeah, 100%. You know, there's a lot of different ways to make money if money's all you want.
Right.
And you can work really, really hard there's lots of jobs where you can make tons and tons of sales jobs and all this kind of stuff. But question is money really the outcome? Is it going to give you a great life, or do you want to live a great life regardless of the money? And, you know, I mean, I gave up a lot. Like you know, I coached, I gave away a tens of millions of dollars a year business in favor of franchising a business because I wanted to be home, and I ended up coaching like 30 seasons of my kids' sports. And
wow,
you know, if you're going to coach, and then, you know, so then I'm building this franchise company, which is basically groups of like 5 to 10 people. So they're like little sports teams. So I'm coaching the owners how to coach their teams. I'm coaching these little sports teams. It's lighting me up on both ends of it. I probably left some money on the table because what I didn't do, like what you said, when you tour around, like if you really want to get movement, you got to go out into the world and get it done.
yeah.
So if you know, you're not going to grow your music if you're not out there in front of people where people are connecting with you city after city and whatever. And it's the same thing in business. Like if you don't go out and meet the people you need to meet and be where you need to be, then the opportunities pass or are given to the people that are there.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a balance, and everybody's got to decide, you know, what are the real priorities in your life? What do you really care about? You know, at the end of the day, if you look back and you know, you die with X dollars or X, you know, 2X dollars, you know, you're still dead, and your body of work speaks for itself, and nobody's really going to care about how much stuff you had. They're going to remember like the impact that you made to the people closest to you.
I agree. I mean, what's the legacy? That's a big theme in a lot of what I do is what's the legacy going to be? And I've told my kids a few times, I don't know. I was like, I don't bank on money. I'm giving you guys songs. I'm giving you guys good information. Like you might get some money. This may work out yet, but I mean, it is working out. But I say that sort of tongue in cheek. But it's like
experiences.
Yeah, just like something. Here's something you can use. So let me ask you, Jeff. When you were coaching,
yes,
You say you coached 30 seasons altogether.
Yeah, so a little bit of soccer with my daughter, and then basketball for her. Lots and lots of baseball with my two boys. Lots and lots of football with my two boys. A little bit of basketball. I coached them up basically. They went to a little private school, so parents were allowed to coach in middle school.
Okay.
So so I coached them. I usually, I coached them kind of up to or up through middle school. At least the boys. I didn't know soccer very well. My daughter, she outgrew me. She still outgrows me. But
what were because I coached just a little during the pandemic when I was finally home and they needed coaches. I got the call, and I'm like looking up the positions of soccer 10 minutes before the first. It was, and I found I live in the suburbs, and everybody thinks their kid's gonna like get a scholarship. So there's obnoxious parents behind you yelling things. It's very stressful. I found it to be one of the most stressful things. Also, incredibly rewarding, and I always wanted to turn around and be like, why don't you volunteer or why don't you shut up? Like, I definitely didn't have a lot of patience for the parents yelling things on the sidelines and stuff. But what I'm curious about is what was your philosophy as a coach? What did you do with the kids?
Well, I can't believe you asked me that. So while we're here on the podcast, I wrote a book. When I was done coaching my last season, I wrote a book to put my philosophy in it.
Come on. That's great.
It's called Hey Coach. So, my thing was, I basically learned over time to make it, the goal is by the end of the season, you want to turn the team over to the kids. You want to give them autonomy. You want to give them ownership of it. And so that they can play fast, loose, happy, and for each other. So we would break the season down into thirds. And the first third, even before that, I would invite every parent to participate. So if we're doing a little football team and there's 18 or 20 kids on it, we would have one parent doing the timeouts, the clocks. One parent would do the special teams. One parent would do this. We'd have a little meeting before, and I'd invite the parents to talk to them, because everything
that is some private school level involvement you got there. I'm impressed.
That was like in Jeff League, or that was like in Pee Wee football. Or
That's
whatever.
Awesome, and everybody came out. And okay, sorry,
yeah. So it's like, because all the stuff you try and do to get the kids to believe that they're in the right position, doing the right thing for the team, gets undone in the car on the way home. Mm-hmm. So if you say, hey, parents, you stay over there, I've got your kids, don't talk to them, no coaching from the sidelines. Well, then as soon as they get in the car, they're just going to get their ears chewed off with all the things that the coach is doing wrong. And why is Susie playing, this, or, there's only one football, right? So whatever it was, baseball, basketball, whatever, I would drill the fundamentals for like the first third of the season and really focus on like getting them to do one thing really, really well, whenever we got them in the right spots. We'd sometimes lose a game early or stuff like that, but they would be very, very capable. And then in the middle portion of the season, we'd make sure that we got them all in the right spots. And then we'd start to put in the concepts of, really a little bit more offensive philosophy, defensive philosophy, things like that. And the last third of the season, we would try to turn it over to them. So if you came and I had a bunch of 12-year-old football players and you saw us warming up, it would look like a little college warm up, because they're all warming themselves up, where, the linebackers are taking little drops and the DBs are warming up and the quarterbacks and receivers are throwing, just like you'd see like before a college game. if you look at the other little team of 12-year-olds, they're standing in a line, they're doing push-ups to a whistle, and they're in a very, very regimented, disciplined type warm-up
Push-ups
thing.
to a whistle. Good Lord. This is what you do in Pee Wee in your town?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
but the point is like
That's intense.
is like you would like I think that people underestimate like kids are just as smart as we are. They're just less experienced. And if you give them permission to think and you give them the accountability, like they really want to learn, right? And then then they've got to like it always has to. You always got to do special little things to make sure that that you break any of the clicks and you manage that. So it was very much a system that me and some of these other parents developed over these 5 or 6 years. And I'm telling you, say whatever you want, we were always in the championship at the end of the year.
Like I'm sure you were, man. You sound like you coach in a college team there. That's a lot. I mean,
yeah, but they and the thing is like, and then, in the off season, the parents, if they could request to be on a team, they'd always request to like be on our team because it was such a good experience for the kids. And you got to remember, it wasn't about like, our goal was that we would all be the best we could be on the last day of the season, whenever that was. It wasn't, we're going to win these games or we're going to do that.
Right.
And then I had I had 3 little like tablets of principles, right? I had player rules, parent expectations, and coaching commitments. So if you want to be a coach, you just don't coach your kid. You have to coach them all. So I had 5 or 7 little phrases, and it was just, so it was like this little playbook of maybe 10 pages. And that was the whole system that we had. And it really worked. And it was
you were very prepared, man. And they are lucky to have you. And that's so cool that you did it, that you made it a thing of it. I think that's great, man. I think it's great. I think the stuff I was coaching was definitely, it's just small town. We had second grade it was co-ed, second grade girls through 4th grade. And boys as well. So we had 4th grade boys playing with second grade girls in the middle of the pandemic. And that's a younger age group. That's a little bit more. I mean, dude,
give them popsicles.
I just wanted to give them like air and like and we were 1 and 9. I mean, but how would we be anything? All I cared about, I'm like, all right, I'm Seabiscuit out there. Like, believe in yourself, guys. I never said they just couldn't get anybody. And they're like, will you do it? I'm like, I'll show up. I'll show up and try. But they were lucky to have you, man. That's very cool.
Well, when you're in the younger, that was kind of the getting ready for middle school, 12-year-old type kid type thing. But at the younger ages, it was, popsicles and stories and all of that, whatever was age appropriate. Right. And, but the most important thing was that the kids had fun. They learned something valuable and they wanted to come back. Like at the end of the day, like if you coach in such a way where half the kids are upset or they're or they don't like the way, they don't want to come back or they didn't get anything out of it, then like, what's the point? Like there's no, nobody's winning a gold medal in 5th grade. I mean, it's, you have such an opportunity to pour into these young people and to do something meaningful and give them a great experience. And I still see these kids. I mean, I coached, hundreds and hundreds of kids over that time. So as I'm walking around town or I'm somewhere, I'll hear, hey, it's the best thing in the world. Hey, Coach Dudan. Now they're 6'2" cool. And I have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some kid.
And that's just the girls.
That's awesome, man. That's good for you. What a that's a huge part of your legacy. That's great. I will have no such legacy as that, but I enjoyed it and I showed up and I endured the, what's he doing at midfield? I'm like, damned if I know, man, but you're welcome to come take this job from me if you want it. Otherwise, shut up. But if they had been in around you, you would have been like, come on in, be part of the team. And I think that's a better way to do it. And that's why you coach 30 seasons and I coached 3. So there we go.
Well, showing up is half the battle, and bless you for doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing from the TED Talk, and it kind of plays into children. You said understand the positive effects of your work, and you talked about going to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and playing for these kids, and just as backdrop of that, with my previous business that we sold in 2019, we were one of 65 national strategic partners with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. We did environmental services like duct cleaning and mold remediation. So
Cool.
anytime, we had 240 locations, anytime that a child either survived a protocol at St. Jude in Memphis, or any of the pediatric oncology hospitals that use the St. Jude protocols, and they would have a child that would need to go home because they had survived their treatment and they had a mold problem or an indoor air quality problem, our franchise owners would go out and do those jobs for either free or at a reduced cost. It was a real big part
Cool.
of like who we were and what we did.
Great.
And I really, you said that when you played at St. Jude and the people were smiling back at you, it meant it changed something in you.
It did. Well, I think that when I mentioned the military stuff before, that this thing starts to awaken in you. For me, it was in my late 20s of like, oh, I'm not the center of the universe, and so you're like, well, what, there's often a tendency to want to wait until things are set to kind of give back or do something, unless you've truly just grown up with service as a part of your daily diet, which is great if you can. Then so this kind of dawned on us, and the people, the band that I was working with and the team, I was like, we may never be U2, and so what can we do now, like today? What can we? I think people want to do more in the world, but you don't always know how. Like, how do I help other humans other than just money? If you have money, that's a great one, and that's awesome. But other than that, what can you do? And sometimes it's hard to connect to that. And so I had this conversation with my then manager, and he said, well, you're going to be in Memphis. Why don't I reach out to the hospital and see if they want to have some music? And I didn't realize it, but at the time, I think we were like the first group to ever go. We did like a prom for the kids. It didn't really matter what age you were, and we did the prom, and they got dressed up, and we played songs, and and talked to them, and then to their families were kind of around too, having it. And then we went back a few more times, and you just start realizing, I mean, the amount of people we impacted that day might have been 40, 50, but you go, wow, I have to do that again, because I feel like I definitely hadn't played a gig that month that felt more important, that felt like it made more of a difference or a memory. Like, these people will remember this experience that I got to be part of. So then you start craving it. And as a result, that's when we started really upping it and going to a lot more children's hospitals. And I tried to make it more a part of our fundraising that we do at the end of the year. And I mean, what we raise is tiny, but financially, but the thing I can do is go into these and be with the families and be with the kids. And I try to do that every year. And we would do a little bit of that and a little bit of the military. And it really helps us. It helped me more than I think I helped anybody else out there. But it really I just thought like, okay, I'm doing something that makes me feel like I'm doing something of value with my life,
Yeah, we would attend Partner Summit in Memphis and tour the hospital, spend 3 days there, tour the hospital. And it's just, it's inspiring, and it changes you, and it sets your perspective back probably to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So we're running, we get all self-involved. We're running through our lives. I got to do this. I got to do, you can't, you're doing all this stuff, and then that just like stops you in your tracks. And it's like, this is a whole city here in Memphis that's been built to save these people's lives. when they started St. Jude, 80% of the people didn't survive leukemia. And now, I think they have over 90%
Yeah.
survival rate. And it's just, they've flipped the scale on, childhood leukemia and so many other important things. And,
And the thing they do where they share all their research,
yeah.
which
Oh yeah.
hospitals weren't doing because they wanted to be the one that found things, and they just made it. Here's everything we know. Here's everything we got. Like, this is a uh, and you're not going to have to pay. You're not going to have to worry about your bills while you're here.
Right.
This is going to be funded. Obviously, not all hospitals can do that, but it's when you're dealing with that kind of catastrophe, what a huge relief to not have that part of the thing breaking your heart as well, and those things I found to be extremely inspiring too, of like, you can have a huge organization and you can create win-wins for people. Like, we're going to cure cancer and we're going to help these parents, and this is going to go, I think I'd like to see more giant businesses thinking that way of how can we do as much possible good for the world while we're out here doing our thing.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. You see these situations where some situation of need goes viral, and then there's $1 million raised through apps or whatever it is like that. But on the other hand, I also feel that we're really a lot less connected, and I think people, we're inside of these phones, and we're inside of these apps, and we're living in a fast world with our attention. There's never been more competition for our attention, and getting people to physically do things anymore. It seems, I don't know. I don't know if it's easier or harder right now. It's a double-edged sword, but
Feels hard. It feels. I have nothing to compare it to, but it certainly seems that the sense of disconnection that people are having in the world is, and we're all kind of talking about it, like, why all this anxiety and this depression up and all this
right.
stuff like that, and it's like, obviously, it's that we're not with people in the same way anymore. We're in the phone, like you said, 4 hours a day. That doesn't even make my eye. I don't even think about that when it says your screen average was 4.5 hours last week. It's just a week. I mean, 4.5 hours just spent just doing whatever. I mean, how could you possibly feel connected to people with that?
It's I tell you, I feel bad when I saw these memes going around, of course, online, and I was death scrolling that said 18 minutes a day is 100 hours a year, and you could learn to play an instrument in 100 hours. You could write a book in 100 hours. You could, here's all the things that you could do in 100 hours, and it's only 18 minutes a day. And then it's like, what did you waste 18 minutes a day doing? Did you waste? Oh man, I waste half. I probably, I don't know that I don't waste half my day.
Yeah.
Getting
That's a powerful metric. So, I mean, I'm trying to teach the kids, I'm trying to model it, but it's not really happening. I mean, I'm still, I think about that too, because one of the talks that so in between the stand up and the rock and roll shows and stuff, I do a bit of speaking. And one of the talks that I tend to give if I'm talking to a company is like, what does it mean to be successful? What is it really? How do we get a definition of success that really holds up, that moves beyond the obvious metrics of, of money or accolades? What else? And I think so much of it is. I find myself living a life I would not trade places with anyone living or dead. And yet I struggle to feel successful. Why is that? That's the question I go back to, and you kind of look at it and go, all right, what could success be if it's not that, and trying to get a definition that you can use as your true north to keep you there when you've spent too much time death scrolling and filled your head with toxic crap, you know?
I think it shows you all the things that you're probably missing. It used to be people would go to work, kids would go to school, you'd come home, there'd be chores to do. Everybody eats together, extended family gets together on Sunday, has a meal. People get together on Sunday, they have a meal, and life was within a set of boundaries. There was you could watch the television and listen to the radio, but other than that, like, if you had an idea and you said, you couldn't put it in some little instrument and realize that a million other people have already had that idea. Like, you could pursue that idea, or I want to do this. There was nobody to tell you that you shouldn't do it, in terms of that it's already been done. So I mean, it's a blessing and it's a curse, but I think, to your point, mental health, the depression, anxiety, ADD, OCD, all of these things are so much more prevalent. I think a lot of it has to do with our diet, actually. As
You look
well.
healthy as hell, man. Well, I'm
Well,
looking at
hey,
you
man.
I'm like, whoa, this guy can coach and he's healthy looking.
No, it's we got a filter and we put it over the camera, so
It looks good, man. I need some of that. I'm looking.
We reflect it off a carnival mirror, so it just kind of does that. You should.
You look good.
I'm 5'2", 480.
I'm sure.
But awesome. So, do any of your kids have musical talent? Are they? Well,
Yeah.
Now, wait. Let me rephrase that. You know if they're talented or not. Do any of your kids pursue music?
They do a little bit. I'm not. I don't push it on them. But they grew up around it. Especially the really all four of them do, and they've all been on stage with me. I told them at a young age, like, people pay for the tickets, so you can't just come out there because you're cute. But if you want to sing, dance, play an instrument, if you can add to the show in any way, you're always welcome. I love to perform with you.
Oh, that is so cool.
And so 2 summers ago, we were out opening for Counting Crows for the summer, and the oldest two joined me on the road and were singing part of the set with me. And then Counting Crows loved their singing so much, they invited them to sing with them too. And then we all put out a single last summer together of all of us singing, that's a dream come true for me. I'm singing with a band I grew up idolizing, and then my two girls, and we get to share that. And we'll do some more of that. Recently, my oldest has been playing a bit of piano in the band for a few songs too. So they do it. I think it's there. I hear it. There does seem to be some reluctance on their part to pursue it. I don't know if it's because they don't want to, or if it's because they think that they need to be perfect at it before they've even started. And like every parent, I sort of go in there and try to figure that out with them, but I tread a little bit lightly because I don't want to overpressure them, and I don't want to also ignore the fact that they're quite good at singing and playing. And,
Yeah.
they're better than the average bear. And I'm like, you guys could kind of, it's like your kids probably could coach. They watched you coach for all these years. They're going to learn something, about how that goes,
Yeah. They, it was time with them that you couldn't manufacture being in situations, being under stress with them, strategizing with them, them being hurt and driving them home in the car, stopping by things happen. So like all of that time was just going through battle with them. And I can't think of another way.
Yeah.
We had Sean Merriman on this week. He was a linebacker for the San Diego Chargers, and just a beast of a guy. And he, talking about players, and he says, even if we knew how bad this was going to be for our bodies and how many surgeries I've had and the risk of it all, he goes, 95% of us would do it again anyway. And it's just because what you learn from performing in any capacity, whether it's on stage with you, there's stress in that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Get traveling there. What's it going to be like? Just getting into the hotel, getting the band set up, going out, doing like the whole process is like it's on the job training for life.
Yeah, it
You
is.
can't, yeah,
And
you
it's
can't.
this adrenaline, you get, this adrenaline thing, and you go through it, and it's like, oh, people are like, you're having so much fun. It's like, it's really fun to have done it. And it's not unfun, but it is. But when you're doing it, it's focus. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's the same for athlete. You're just trying to hit your marks, and you're trying to do the thing that you're capable of doing at the best possible, highest possible level. Same when I'm giving a talk or doing a stand-up set. You're just trying to land it. The fun part is kind of like when it's over and you're like, whew, I did it. That's like where the fun of it is. And I think if nothing else, my hope for the girls is having done this will be that they know they can get up. Like, what I say is I say it's like having butterflies. There's benevolent butterflies. They're coming to land on all over you and wake you up. You got this gift you got to go give, and you're like, what are these things doing on me? Okay, I'm awake. You feel a little, I feel this nerves, but they're just making sure you're awake and alert and at your top game. Then you go out, you do the thing, and you go, all right, we're good. And then you have the satisfaction and confidence of having done that, and that's the reward.
Yeah, man, when I'm giving a talk and I know it's going well, and now I'm down maybe to the last 5 or 10 minutes,
Yeah.
it's like that's the best, right?
Yeah.
Is it that way? Is it that way
Oh,
when you're performing? Because you're like, this went well, they loved it. I've got my last 2 songs to go, and I'm just going to cruise on through. This is for me now, right?
Yeah.
Because you've delivered on
That's
what they
the
hired
thrill.
you for.
Yeah, totally. That's the absolute the encore. You walk out, there people are on their feet, and you're like, I'm relaxed for the first time all evening right now. I'm and then and once in a blue moon, you just get there quicker. You get there right at the top. You just know, you're like, I got this thing's in my hands. Like, I've had a few over the years where I've had a few in the different mediums, but you just know you got it, and that's an incredible feeling. You do feel like you're soaring, but that's not every day. That's unique when that happens. It's that last 5 minutes you talked about is very common. Thank God. Still doesn't mean that you're not a little bit amped up right before you're going to go do the thing again.
Yeah. No. Well, and that's the pleasure and the joy that you get from making the choice that you made to do what you do, and and it's meaningful. On the stand up, do you have different kinds of nerves before you go out for stand up than you do for performing musically?
Yeah, I mean, I was so nervous before that first stand up set. I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I just thought, why do I do that? Why am I doing this to myself? And I was doing a set at a cigar bar comedy club. It was like not some high stakes situation, but it felt unreal. Then I went out, I did it. It went well. I just did 15 minutes that first time to strangers, nobody I knew. Went well. And I was like, okay. I think the nerves, there's 2 kinds of nerves. You get nerves that are sort of just amped up nerves, and those are good. Those wake you up, like I was talking about. You do get nerves if you're not prepared, that's information. That's like, you're anxious for a reason. You're not prepared enough,
Right.
And the trick with stand up is I don't have 20 plus years of, music, if I had to, I could just walk out into any situation and I can figure it out. So you get those nerves and you're like, all right, there's so much sense memory. Comedy, it's new to me. I'm a year into this thing, so it's not like I live and breathe these beats on these bits and stuff. So I have to really kind of propel myself into it. And sometimes the nerves I have are just because I'm like, damn, I know what great looks like, and I don't have the facility yet. And that's scary.
Have you bombed yet?
I haven't bombed. I have had jokes bomb.
Okay.
And if it's just, and having a joke bomb, maybe this is just 47 at work, but it's kind of awesome. You're kind of like, oh, this isn't going to kill me. Yeah, you know?
That's what I say. It's not fatal.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, literally,
Yeah.
it's really, really not. Because I've tangled it up in my music career a bit now, there is a
Yeah.
little bit of fear that I'm playing fast and loose with our livelihood. But I have to say, I've also, it hasn't. I started with. It's not like I started from nothing because of so many years of storytelling in between. Um, going for an hour, that's a little. That has the potential to be a bit scary, and I'm
How
not
much
gonna.
how much do you have right now? I mean, I
I could do an hour. It's not all organized to like where I would need some notes at this point, and by the time we shoot this thing, I've got to have it much more in the blood. But
where you play? Okay, so we've got two comedy specials coming up. Fairfield, Connecticut on October 23rd. Where is that?
that's Southern Connecticut, about an hour outside the city, and it's at a beautiful old theater that I used to go to growing up, like to see movies in middle school and stuff. So it feels like that one's sort of a homecoming reason I chose that one.
Okay.
I don't live there anymore, but I chose that one. And then we do 2 nights later the Park West in Chicago, which is a cool kind of. It's got red booths and it's got a kind of Vegas-y feel.
Yeah.
Both I could have and probably should have chose small comedy clubs to work in as a new comic, but this is like the crazy part of me that just said, well, I think I might like it to I might to like to do it in theaters. So now we're in these bigger things. I mean, I'm not saying I'm
That's
making all the right decisions, Jeff. I'm just making
yeah.
decisions.
Like so what are you gonna shoot for? Are you gonna shoot for like 50 minutes?
Yeah, I'll do an hour.
Okay.
A lot of times where I have been doing most of my stand up, I walk out and I kind of set people up at the beginning of the night and say, "Here's the game plan." I think a
Yeah.
game plan goes a long way. Here's a game
Right.
plan. I'm going to sing you a few songs, then I'm going to do a stand up set, then I'll play a few more songs. So people kind of know what's coming and it kills some
Okay.
of the restless vibes. Now for
Yeah.
these nights, because we have a film crew and we're taping it and there's, that's we're pretty invested in that, capturing that piece. We'll probably have the director go out and say, all right, here's what's happened. Instead of me, here's what's happening. Kellogg's going to come out here, do an hour of comedy. And then I've told everybody that's bought a ticket, then I will stand on stage for however long until they kick us out and play music, and we'll, raise a glass of champagne and celebrate, that. But I have about it. I have an hour of material that I'm focused on. I've done all of it, but I've done it usually in like a half-hour chunk or a
Yeah.
40-minute chunk, and so my hope is in telling people, hey, we're shooting an hour, they'll just relax into it and enjoy the experience of the different topics we're going to cover. And it's an outline, it's like a play, in that sense.
So I'll do like keynotes. I do different trainings. I mean, I've done a 100-minute keynote for a room of 400 people that I didn't know who they were. They didn't know who
That's
I
a pretty good
was.
length for a keynote. That's a long one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I got, and it's stuff that I've been doing for years, and so it's all kind of built on its stuff, and it's businessy stuff, but I work in a good half a dozen jokes in there,
Yeah.
and like I think it's just for me, but it does break it up a little bit, and they're not bad, but I don't know about you, but like so, I aspire to do stand because I'm in front of people a lot, but I never get to just do a set. And
Right.
but I have like 297 bits in my phone of just observational things that I need to develop.
Yeah.
And I think I know I could get an hour, but here's the thing. A lot of the stuff that I got doesn't go well with the CEO role. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like
Sure.
I don't know, like I don't think I can really do it, I mean, I don't think I could do some of it for sure. And I don't know that I'm so I don't know when it's going to happen.
You
for
should,
me,
man. You should just go down to, if you got a
do an open
friend,
mic.
you should just go
Yeah.
find somebody to give you 10 minutes and think about 10 of the, 3 or 4 of the things you'd like to talk about, because that was the thing that made me go, oh, what's so fun and cathartic about this was also, like you have your the CEOs you're talking to. Okay. I have this role that people where I'm kind of this like, Harry Chapin, Dan Fogelberg. I'm like, they know me as this like nice songwriter guy. Some of the
Yeah.
jokes I want to tell are a little, they're not dirty jokes, but they're not, it's making fun of my kids and my marriage and my wife.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff doesn't play as well when you're singing a sweet song.
Yeah.
So getting to just go be in an environment where you don't have that expectation on you is incredibly fun. And for me, those bits, you said, exactly how many. Yeah, you put them on note cards. You look at the ones that you think would be the funnest to talk about, and you talk about them. And sometimes what I realize is I'll try a bit, and I'll realize, okay, I'm not articulating what I think is funny about this as well, because
Yeah.
people aren't just, and that's when a joke actually bombs. You're like, either this isn't as funny as I think, or I just haven't cracked it yet.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of humor in that. 9 times out of 10, what happens though is if you don't quite have it yet, you get a laugh. You can just tell it's not as big as the laugh of the thing that you really conveyed really clearly. So I try to tape all the shows too, and you listen back, and it's painful, but it's so productive and useful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's you got to invest that time. It's the feedback from stand up is pure and immediate. Like there's no lack of clarity
Totally.
around like whether you got it or not. And especially, so if I'm doing a keynote and it's in the franchising industry and I'll go to a room and there's a couple hundred people in there, I have some positional power. I have some reputation. Like it's not an independent audience. Like they're there because they want to hear what you've got to say about how you did what you did and how they can use that in doing what they do. So it's very much it's almost like a lecture, and then what I try to do is try to make it fun with some clean, some good, clean humor along the way that they don't see coming. And then it kind of breaks it up and it makes sure that everybody's, reset and paying attention. And then you go on with your next thing. And I've developed this thing. I could almost do it in my sleep because I've probably done it 200 times, whether it be in a training for our own franchisees or whatever. But, I really want to go and walk into somewhere and, where they're just going to judge you based on the quality of your content and your delivery.
What's in front of them.
Yeah.
I envy what you're describing that you have with your business rap. And I appreciated before when you said, oh, you're doing this and you're doing that. And that's been a great joy for me as an artist, but it's also been a little bit of a curse because nothing's ever fully in there. I'm talking to CEOs and then I'm talking to a school and it's creative. It's just, there's always something a little, and then you're writing a book and then you're doing a little stand up and then it's a rock show with the band and it's a rock show solo. And so there is a sense inside me that I never quite get anything down entirely because I'm always jumping around, and a little part of me loves that, but I also crave that, just having something that you just know what's going to happen with it. It's been, the last 5 years have been exciting, and also just like I have craved that, a little more of just knowing what I'm going to be walking into and who the audience is going to be, what it's going to be,
Yeah. So, Stephen, is there something that that you will do in the future that you haven't done yet?
That's a great question. I always have so many things on my plate, that I want to be getting into. Like I'm 3/4 of the way through a novel right now, and I think I never wanted to do that.
Fiction book.
But I think a fiction book might be the the next crazy thing to do that I haven't totally finished yet. And right now, honestly, this special, I haven't done it yet, but I believe that is going to happen. I mean, it's on sale and we're going, but you haven't done it till you've done it. And that feels like a huge thing to have bit off. So
Now, is that going to be recorded and played somewhere?
yeah, we're talking to a few partners about it, most of whom are eager to see what we get first before they, and then we'll see what the distribution channels will be and how big a fish we can catch with all that. If nothing else, we're in a world where you go, all right, YouTube, here we go, and it's out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So we know it's not going to go unseen unless I really tank, which isn't going to happen.
No.
And if it does, we'll just take this part of this interview and then juxtapose it with me tanking, and that will be funny. So,
cut those in. We'll just cut.
Exactly. Cut. Yeah, this is
Stephen Kellogg's worst jokes.
What could go wrong? And then it's bang, bang, boom, bomb, monkeys on the screen.
Hey, I do have a question. I'm really interested in your answer to this. The future of music performance, artists, as it relates to things like AI and some of these technologies where it's so easy now to replicate things, voice enhancers. You can sing into your computer now and it can clean you up and you sound good. Are you feeling anything with all of this technology? Is it making it easier or harder for you to do what you do?
That's a great question and something I'm fascinated by right now. I think to answer, to moving backwards, the part of your question, does it make it easier or harder? I think it very much depends on the type of artist you are. I think for a lot of younger artists right now who are more comfortable, who just grew up recording their own music. I mean, GarageBand was like the beginning for them, and then it kind of turned into like, getting comfortable with all this software and stuff. I think probably for them, it will be less of a journey. For me, I don't ever totally see myself embracing a lot of aspects of that, and that a friend of mine about 2 months ago played me a song, and it was his lyrics, and he just plugged in, Americana, voice like Brandy Carlisle, pedal steel, and he put his lyrics in, and it spit out a song that was so terrific, that was played so well, and it was being sung. And so when I played it for one of my other friends, he said, "Who's the singer?" And I said, "The singer is no one. This isn't somebody that exists. This is the machine." And we both sat there for a minute, like trying to ponder the implications, not just in the kids are changing everything, but like, what does that mean if you can find something so pleasing out of the computer? And then I was in the studio last week making music, and I remembered that, part of the thrill of this is you make the music because this experience is your experience. You do it. I had to slog it out. And that guitar is not perfect, but it is like I had to go through something to get that on there. And then the singing I had to go through, and it's not perfect. And then leaning into the humanity of the music. Will there still be a market for people that want to feel something more authentic? I love authenticity wherever I find it. And the perfectness of that other song, probably I won't like as much as something that I can hear but eventually will that desire die off? It might. Enough people grow up never hearing an out of tune note sung. Is it just going to be like, why would I listen to an out of tune? Like, why would I ever want that?
Right.
And I'm told Spotify's like a lot of their jazz playlists and stuff now is just like AI, it's not.
Why would they pay for it if they can just create it for
right
free?
So
and that's kind of what it comes down to, right? Is the consumer is going to determine what you can get away with. And hey, maybe Milli Vanilli was just ahead of their time.
It's true. I mean, the things that people got in trouble for were a lot less than what people are doing. Right. Yeah. I mean, you go to like a huge I'll take my kids to a huge festival, And the amount of times that there's some band or kid or somebody out on stage with just a mic and they hit the tracks, and I'm like, this is karaoke. They're just karaokeing to their tracks, and they're charismatic and they've got good moves, but it's not, it looks so incredibly easy to do. And yet I look around and I'm like, well, everybody's okay with this. Everybody's having fun. Nobody has a
Right.
problem with this. And this is selling, and it's selling a lot more than I'm selling right now with my guitar. So I'm like, I can't deny that the marketplace it's driving it. Um, it's cause for concern. It's one of the reasons I'm exploring author and speaker, and I mean, it's led me to a lot of other things. I'm not curling up in the fetal position going, oh, woe is me, they took music away from me.
Right.
um, I'm a little sad about it. My kids may never know what it's like to form a band and slog it out to get to, you know
Yeah.
but
Play
if there's
that.
not a
Play
demand
that.
for it.
Yeah. Play
it,
that like 10,000 hours to get, the Beatles to play together for all of these stories about bands. Hey, I watched the Nickelback documentary last night. I don't know where you stand on that. I think, but
well,
I like Nickelback. I'll
you
say
should.
it. I'm saying it right now. I don't care. Haters, jump into the comments. I'm a Nickelback fan.
I am 100% with you, and I can't let you say that and not share this. So in 2018, my manager called and said, we got a call from Nickelback's management, and they want you to come do this event. And I said, well, what is it? And she's like, well, I didn't know. I didn't call him. I'm like, who the fuck are we? Like, call him back. What is this? So she called, and I had written a song called Such a Way early in my career that they really liked. And they had this event, and they had a cancellation, and they wanted me to fly up to Vancouver and play it with them. And I was like, great. So I went up. They played acoustic, and they couldn't have been nicer people, which I haven't
Yeah.
seen the documentary yet, but I am told it displays they're incredibly generous. They're kind. They're
Great
friendly.
people.
There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong there. I mean, they're
No.
everybody you'd want to hang out with, and they're giving music to a lot of people that love it. And it's like, you know, so and to the point where they said, "Oh, hey, Stephen, we don't want you to feel like you're opening for us, so we're going to play first. We'll do our 3 songs, and we'll introduce you and bring you out." I mean, so I went on, and I'm like, I like to thank Nickelback for opening for me tonight. Like,
Right.
I'm like, this is unbelievable, Like, I can't. So they really, and then during COVID, when I was doing these virtual shows, they. Trina and Ryan Peake came on my thing, and they just couldn't be more generous. And so I, at that point, was like, we got to stop with the Nickelback jokes. This
Oh,
is sort of unfair. It's just like we picked the nicest people in the world to pick on. And anyway,
it's
yeah,
completely unfair. I don't know. Like, I really don't know how it happened, but it's just people ganging on, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't deserve it. Now they did fine. 50 million albums.
Listen, where we held that event was on a nice little island that I think
Yeah.
they owned. So I
Right.
mean, they're laughing all the way to the bank, but they are, but nobody really deserves that at the end of the day. I'm glad there's a doc out there that kind of addresses it. I will definitely watch it, and I am,
Yeah. Check
they're
that
all
out.
great guys.
Well, very cool. Well, hey, this has been great. I've really enjoyed this.
Me
It
too.
was as good or better than I expected, and I'm
Good.
just it's such a pleasure you're such a man, such a good, authentic father, artist, entertainer. So I'm just, it's an honor to get to spend this time with you. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Jeff. Me too. Thank you for having me on the show. I feel I definitely did not dress up. I'm going to do better next time we talk. I promise. I'm going to get better lighting and that filter. But no, I enjoyed your thoughts, and I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Awesome. Last question for you. If you had one sentence to make an impact in somebody's life, what would that be?
Oh my God. Okay. One sentence, man. That's a big spontaneous question to have. Was this in the notes that I should have thought about?
No,
Uh,
no, just it's just our question. Something maybe you say to your kids when anything you got,
no,
or
I
not,
mean,
or nothing.
no. Honestly, I mean, this is going to keep me up at night thinking about it, and I'm going to need to follow it up. But I think I would say to somebody something to the effect of, "You are enough, man or woman. You are. I know that I know that life is hard. Even when it's good, it's challenging. But let's never forget that we're enough just being who we are, and you can build every day on that. Um, I'm going to think more about this,
I think it's perfect.
but so much of what I want people to take away is like, you don't have to be exceptional. You just have to take the best of what's inside you and do what you can with it.
Perfectly said.
Thanks,
Do
man.
not miss Stephen Kellogg in Fairfield, Connecticut on October 23rd, and at the Park West in Chicago on October 25th. Singing, guitar playing, and some awesome stand-up. Stephen Kellogg, thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. Very
Yeah,
nice.
100% Stephen Kellogg. I am Jeff Dudan, and we have been on the Homefront. Thanks for listening.